Hello, chefs. Good morning. We are back again. I'm Isaiah, the young Jedi chef, here with the Dragon Warrior chef, German Lam, and the Phoenix Warrior chef, Noreen. We will be your hosts for today's podcast. You are listening to a unique podcast where we will discuss tough yet real topics that need to be heard in the industry. In this podcast, you will hear the truth real, raw, and unfiltered. Today, we have the honor of having Chef Sean Sheldon with us to talk about what it takes to achieve the status of a Michelin star. I'm excited to get started and jump right in. So without further ado, I will let the star of our show, our guest, Chef Sean Chef Sean introduce himself. Chef.
Morning, everyone. First of all, it's been a while. Give me just one moment. Yes, yeah, I am. Thank you. I am right now. Give me half an hour. Sorry, I warned you guys about that.
Yeah.
So first of all, it's been a long time since I've been called chef, but that's okay. I started my career in Boston with German of all people, and so probably been in the business almost 30 years now. But through the years, progressed through from working with German as a young cook all the way to executive chef, and became a corporate chef somewhere along the way, and transitioned to front of the house and went to director of operations and then concept development and somewhere along that became development and let the career sort of take me where it was going to go. So that's my story. Still love food, still love cooking, still love seeing what's going on in the business, uh, and enjoy looking at this new generation of chefs and seeing what they're doing and saying, not the way I would have done it, but learning from them and sort of taking on what their approach is, taking what I like from it and giving back where I can to them and saying, listen, this is how I would do it differently, or saying, oh, I see what your take is. That's that's interesting, or that's good fun. How's that for an introduction?
That's amazing, Chef. We're super excited to have you. Looking forward to your perspective on things. Yeah, so as chefs, day in and day out, we put our blood, sweat, and tears into our craft. We work tirelessly for hours to perfect something that will be savored in a matter of minutes. This is the life we choose. Along with this life comes a set of expectations that will take our guests on a journey every time that they indulge into our food. A lot of chefs strive to be the best in their craft and strive to beat their competition. So this is going to lead us to our first question. How can you make yourself stand out as a chef, and what are some things that you could do to differ from the others? Chef, you want to start us off?
That's a tough question. How can you make yourself stand out? I'm formed, or my career and my what I've done with my career, very different than most, but it's been formed by my experiences and the people I've come in contact with. It's 30 years. German and I are still friends. He was formative in my career. We worked with a gentleman named Charles Draghi. 30 years ago, formative in my career. So everyone I've touched in my career sort of formed me. I think one of the chefs that I worked with a long time ago said to me, you can tell someone's life story by how they cook or what kind of chef they are or the food they do. And so the question of saying, how do I make myself stand out? I don't know that I ever tried to stand out. I tried to always be me. And different me as I've evolved, my cooking has evolved, if that makes sense. I never tried to be someone else. I was a young cook. I did someone else's food. I had their ideas. I strived to hit their standard. And over 30 years, the standards changed to become what my standard is. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. And I think that we all go through that, right? For a 25-year-old to come to me and say, or a 23-year-old to come to me and I say, well, this is what I like. I appreciate that,
Mhm.
knowing full well that at the age of 35, you're not going to like that anymore. It's not going to have the same impact. At 45, it's going to have a different impact. At 55, it's going to have a different impact. So there's a bit of your story in your food. Um, the question, and I just want to make sure I can get back to it. Um, how can you make yourself stand out as a chef? Your story is what makes you stand out. everyone has a unique story. Your food, the things you do. You know, it's funny. I spent 20 years doing classic French training. And you would think I would fall in love with French food or Italian food. And at this stage in my career, I find myself missing the food that I grew up with. I miss my mom's cooking. I miss the stuff that she did, you know. So I crave that. I crave that flavor profile, a lot of acid, a lot of spices. I crave that. That's what I grew up in. I'm sort of going that full circle back to what I wanted there. So, you know, I think as chefs evolve, and you'll see this with the French chefs, you'll see with the Italian chefs, as they get older, it's a lot less experimenting and a lot more, this is what I like, and this is my story, and this is what I'm going to tell with it.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I love that answer, Chef. And I think that's kind of how we all start too, is all start with the story. And that creates our specialty, you know, and we'll talk about it a little bit more later, but it all starts to, like you said, bringing you back to that time in your mom's kitchen, you know, and bringing you back to that dish she used to always make for you, you know, telling that story to the guest. And that makes it personable. And you know, it's what everybody desires when they take that bite of the food. They want to be reminded of that special moment. So thank you so much for that, Chef. Noreen, Chef Lam, what's your take?
Oh, I love this question and I love your answer, Chef Sean. And it goes back to something we've discussed before on the podcast, and something that's just really important as like a young budding professional is knowing yourself, allowing yourself to grow, and allowing yourself to change as well. And so that self-exploration and, this is who I am, this is what I like through that experimentation and growth is really important. And I just really love that point. I think I'm at a point in my life where certain things are changing a little bit, and it's important to allow myself to grow because we should always be growing and we'll always be changing and learning. And, I look forward to that point in my life that you were saying, Chef Sean, where you're like, okay, this is who I am, this is what I like, and that's how it goes. So I just really love that point.
There's a certain comfort in that, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah, it
There's a
sounds like
certain
it.
comfort in that.
I'm not there yet, but we'll get there.
You know, I worked for a gentleman in Miami, and I'm going to get the story wrong, but I hope you get the gist of it. He collected art, and one day I asked him, I said, "What makes art? What do you're an art collector. Why is this worth 40 million? Why is this worth 3,000? Why is this worth this?" And he said, "I'm going to tell you a story." And here's the story he told, because it's a huge shaper in my career. Has nothing or very little to do with food. He says, imagine you're born, it's the mid 20s in the United States, so you're born right about, let's say, 1918, 1917, and you go through through the course of your life, you see the end of World War One. Now you're born, you're still a baby, you don't really affect it, but you go down, and then the Depression hits, and you're going with your dad every day in town. And while your dad is negotiating to buy groceries for the family, you go and you look at the comic book aisle, and you're fascinated by Superman and Batman and all these things, right? And so your dad goes into town every week. It's the Depression, your family's broke, and you're staring at comic books. And then World War One hits, and you enlist. You go away and you go to war. So you've seen World War One, you've seen the Depression, you're seeing World War Two. You come out, you're on the GI Bill, and you go to school. You do your thing, you go to school, Korean War hits, you get the GI Bill, you study business, you're living out in Long Island, you get a job on Wall Street, and you're making a dollar or two, and you see your life going by. You see Vietnam, you see these things. So in the course of your life, so far you've seen World War One, World War Two, the Depression, Korea, a little bit of Vietnam. You're still living out on Long Island. You're somewhat successful. You're doing okay. But now you got a little age on you. And you're walking through Soho, walking through Soho in the rain, and you walk by a art gallery. And there it is on the wall. Giant cartoon of Superman. And you stand outside the gallery and you're staring at it. And it's done in the style of Liechtenstein. Maybe it is a Liechtenstein, but you're staring at it. And you walk in and you say to the gallery owner, how much is that? And he says to you, it's $10 million. And you look at it and you say, you know what? I'll take it. Because that's the story of life. So that's art. That's food. That's what we all hope to get to at some point in our life where we can look back and we say, that's my story. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is that story even fitting? I don't know. But I want to tell you that story because it was very formative in my career. And it's reaching that point where you can look back and say, what's my legacy? What am I leaving behind? What do I believe in? And that, when a chef gets there, when you talk about Michelin stars, when you talk about New York Times stars, when you talk about just running a great restaurant in your neighborhood, isn't that what it comes down to?
It
The
is.
story it leaves behind.
Yeah, the story, the
How's
legacy
that?
behind. I love it, Chef. I love it.
I don't mean to be too heavy for you guys.
Oh no, I
Yeah.
don't think we could have said it better.
The gentleman who told me that story has passed on,
yeah.
and it always brings a tear to my eye when I think of him because he was an amazing human being.
No, we appreciate you, Chef. Thank you for sharing that story. And like you said, it's all about kind of like that legacy and bringing you back to that time when you started off with nothing, and now you're able to sell these dishes for lots of money. You're able to share your story with other people and inspire other people. You know, that's really what we're in this for, to inspire other people and share our work. So thank you so much for that, Chef.
Well, it's good to be able to look back. If you go back to when I was cooking with German, right? Because I was thinking, Michelin is, for some reason, Michelin is the title of this. And I'm not 100% comfortable with that, but it's okay. I think I could talk about it. I was blessed to be able to work at a Michelin 3-star in France.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go back to 93, 94, Marco Pierre White was the hottest thing on the planet. Alain Ducasse was just making his name. I think there were a grand total of 19 Michelin 3-star restaurants in the world. So it comes down to that. And then the reason I tell that art story is because those names that formed that early part of my career, Michel Gerrard, Cuisine Monsieur, Trois Gros, Bocuse, some of them have, most of them, I guess, have passed on, but their legacy is what remains behind. And for everybody who wants a Michelin star today, if you don't know about those cats, if you don't know about those chefs, how are you going to continue a tradition that goes on and says, I represent Michelin? I don't know, I can't speak to Michelin or what their standards are, but I know what they meant to me when I was a young cook. And I knew every one of those names back then. You had Girardet in Switzerland. The name doesn't come to my head. You had 1 or 2 in Italy. You had 1 or 2 in Germany. You had Robuchon. You had Ducasse. You had Marco. So those names all meant something to me. And you say, well, why did those guys become something? And I'll trigger into another little story that I saw when I was in France, and then we'll get back onto your agenda.
Yeah, you're good. Go for it. I love storytelling.
The chef in France came up to me, and in France, it's a Michelin 3-star restaurant, and it's had, now I believe it's the longest Michelin tenured 3-star restaurant in the world. But he comes up to me and he takes 2 beans and he puts it next to my ear and he rubs them together, and he said, you see, when they're fresh, they sing. I mean, fresh from the garden, they sing. That's a Michelin 3-star restaurant. The devotion to your métier, the devotion to your craft over a lifetime of saying, I want to get better. And this goes back, I could tie it into German and on my experience with Chef Jackson Kenworth when we worked together in Boston. I said, hey, what do I do? And, I'm thinking about this for a career. He said, I'm going to give you the same advice that Michel Richard gave me however many years ago, or maybe it was Wolfgang Puck who gave it to him. Every day at the end of the day, sit down, 10, 15 minutes. What did I do today? What could I have done better?
Mm. Yeah.
I'm going to do that tomorrow. And when
Mm.
you start out the day the next day, sit down. I remember yesterday. This is what I did yesterday. This is what I'm going to do today. This is what I'm going to do better. And if you spend a lifetime compounding that experience, you're going to be just fine as a cook, as a chef, whatever you want to call it. Get better every day, even if it's just a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah, and I love that point. And I love you know, like you said, think about what you can do better and what you did today. And I think a lot of people when they mess up or when they fail or when they make mistakes, they often give up. They don't, you know, they don't sit down and think about, okay, this is how I could do it better, and I'm gonna set a goal for myself and I'm gonna make it happen. A lot of times they just kind of give up and you know, say that's that. But I think if you do like you said and set a goal for yourself and you know really analyze your day and analyze the places that you could improve on, it'll motivate you, and it'll you know, every day you kind of push that limit, you push your limit, and you don't get comfortable, because in this industry you can't get comfortable. You know, if you get comfortable, then you become complacent, and then your food becomes stale. Everything, you know, kind of goes downhill from there. So I think doing like what you said and making those goals every day pushes the limit. So thank you so much for that, Chef. Chef Lam, what's your take?
Oh, I love this right here. I'm just absorbing, what Chef Sean is saying, Chef Noreen, Chef Isaiah. And I gotta say, when you talk about Michelin stars, I go, what's your philosophy? What's your principle? I started my journey working at the Boston Ritz-Carlton Hotel, 5 stars. We were the game, you know what I mean? And to me, it's a different approach versus now. But what makes you, I would say, think about Michelin, right? Everything is clean, everything is detailed. You look at everything is lined up, everything is uniform. You're looking at it, it's a piece of art. The dining room, everything is like, wow, everything is like clockwork. In the kitchen, you have the garde you have the banquet, you have the restaurant line, you have the pastry shop. You go in there, it's immaculate, meaning it's organized, it's clean. So to me, that gives you a mindset. You don't have to think about it. It just becomes you. And to actually be in that environment, if you really think about it, is basic sanitation, right?
There are two really important things there, right? The environment and your mindset. And that's so precious. Keller, I think it's Thomas Keller, tells the story of, I knew I was getting somewhere with my staff when one day I walked into the kitchen and I saw the guy. You know how they tape the tablecloth over the pass at the beginning of the day, and I saw him, and he was using a scissors to cut the tape to tape it down, whereas it's masking tape, you could just rip it, but he wanted that line straight. That's the mindset. Yesterday I just ripped it. No one's going to see it under here, but I'm going to do it like that because that's a little more precise, right? It's like making your bed when you get up in the morning. Military creases, military corners. Why do I do it? I don't know. But it's my mindset. I see it. I look at it, right? And when you talk about your environment, the greatest advice, and I'm not an old man by any means, but if you're going to work in a kitchen, if you're going to spend the amount of hours we do in an environment, and I'm not doing the blood, sweat, and tears thing, I'm just saying, if you're going to spend that much time with people, make sure they're good people.
Mm.
Why be in a place that isn't filled with good people? Make sure they share your values. Make sure they have integrity. They say that they're good. They do what they say they're going to do. Spend your life with good people. When you pick up your iPhone and you go to your favorite list, if you got more than 7 or 8 people on your favorite list, you're living a life that's a little off center, right? You'd only have room for so much. Spend your life with good people. Surround yourself with people who share your values. You're not going to be great if you're not surrounded by people who also want to be great. You know, and that goes through every aspect of your life. You know, do it the right way. In the end, it'll cost you less. It'll cost you less stress. It'll cost you less heartache. You'll live a more full life. Spend your life with good people in the right environment. You're going to be just fine. That's my thought.
No, I love that point, Chef. And it's, you know, it's always said who you surround yourself with is who you become. You know, if you surround yourself with successful people, if you surround yourself with people that have the same goals, have the same drive, have the same vision as you do, you'll become successful. And you kind of feed off of each other and motivate each other. But if you surround yourself with people that are kind of bring you down and kind of just trying to, you know, go against your goals and that are doing things to kind of distract you, that's how you're going to become, and you're never going to achieve success. So I think I love that point. It's better to have few quality people in your life that are going to bring you up and build you up and that are always there for you than a whole bunch of people that do nothing for you. So I love that point, especially like in the kitchen, you know, you're with those people more than you are with your family. So I think being able to build a camaraderie and build that community within your kitchen and your space is super important, you know, because that becomes your family essentially. So yeah, thank you for that point, Chef. Noreen, Chef Lam, what's kind of your take on that?
Oh no, I just birds of a feather flock together always. And I was really selective when I picked where I wanted to work after school for that reason. I just wanted to be in a place where I was uplifted and I was always learning, always challenged, and that's really important to me in this time in my career. So I think there's always something to learn regardless of the work environment. But after a certain point, you know, get yourselves out of any toxic work environments. There's only so much you can learn, right, from that. And I just I love all the stories. I'm going to be thinking about that art piece story probably all week now. I really like that. So, Chef Lamb, what's your take?
Well, you know, to me, think of the good, bad, and ugly. And that's what the culinary hospitality industry is, right? And that means how many good people are you going to meet? How many bad environment are you going to meet? Then suddenly you go, damn, it's ugly. And you look around and people are actually, you know, enjoying that environment. So to me, you learn in all three phases. And that's the beauty of our hospitality, because you got to go through that. Because once you go through it, you actually would know how to clean someone up. And that's our business, right? We buy ingredients, and what do? We clean it up, we polish it. So now when it's being served to the guests, it looks like a piece of art. But we also do that with our, you know, our cooks. You know, that is the essence of, you know, the industry that I enjoy.
Exactly. And I like how you said you got to get in there and kind of clean it up a little bit. And that's all about, you know, trial and error, all about getting in there, learning, failing, making mistakes, and improving each day. So that kind of leads us to our next question. What are some of the most memorable or impactful trials and errors that you have experienced as a chef? And how's it made you better, either personally or as a chef? You want to start us off, Chef Sean?
Sure. Trial and error as a chef. You know, that's a tough one because your mind immediately goes to food. And listen, if a dish works, it works. If it doesn't work, you figure it out pretty fast, right? The lessons I've learned in my life through trial and error. There was a time, honestly, this is personal. I devoted a solid 10, 12 years of my life. No, I'm sorry, that's way wrong. I devoted a solid 20 years of my life to actually advice German gave me. He gave it to me for 5 years. He said, for 5 years, you got to devote yourself to this business. Do nothing but live, eat, sleep, work. I did it for 20. And I got probably as pretty high up in the business, right? For me, for a little guy from the islands, I was doing well. And personal level, this may not be the idea of your podcast, but I'll share it with you. I got diagnosed with cancer. And I could tell you this, without a doubt, when you're staring down that barrel, when you're thinking in terms of your last breath, you never say, shit, I wish I had spent another minute at work. Damn it, I didn't get that project done. You say, I wish I had another minute with my family. So that's my lesson. Hard-earned one, not everyone's lesson. Biggest trial and error, I gave too much to work and not enough to the stuff that's important, my family. And now I learned that lesson. I walk away from it, say, okay, involvement without attachment. Doesn't mean I don't care. It just means I'm well aware of what I'm attaching myself to. Involvement without attachment. I'm deeply involved. I still find myself getting emotional about things that I want to win, because I want to win. I want to achieve. I want to feel great. I want that feeling that you get from the kitchen. But I got to stop myself and say, involvement without attachment. What's your, the biggest lesson I learned in life, I tell people, the most important lesson I learned in life was on my wall when I was 5 years old. I just didn't know what it meant. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. And I think a lot of us had that on our walls growing up, or maybe it was just cultural for me. But know what you can change it.
I love
Accept
that.
what you can't change and know the difference, and you'll be okay.
Yeah, I love that, Chef. And like you said, this craft, or what we do, what we love is important, but it's not everything. So it's important to know that you have a life outside of work, outside of the kitchen. And I had to realize that at a young age too. I started in the kitchen at 15, and I had 2 jobs. I was going to school, I was working. I didn't have any time with my family. Every time I walked in the door, I felt like an alien. I felt like a stranger. But I realized, there's more to life than just working. You have to have a life outside of work. So
Don't get me
that's
wrong. I don't mistake what I'm saying. I am, and German will tell you this, and the people who work with me will tell you this. I am driven to be the best.
yeah,
There's not a corner cut. There's not a. I am absolutely driven. I believe in the minute I meet someone, I size them up, and I boxed for almost 30 years, maybe more. Oh wow, almost 40 years. I know that feeling of stepping into a ring and that last minute, that focus, that adrenaline rush, that I'm about to head into combat. I know it. I love it.
yeah,
I want to win. It's just not it's not all consuming as it was once. And winning, you change your definition, right? I want to be the best. When I was a cook, I wanted to be the best cook. When I was a chef, what does it take to be a chef? It's not the best cook, it's the best manager. I studied to be the best. When I was the front of the house, I wanted to be the best. When it was service, I want to be the best. To this day, I'm still online hour and a half a night, whether it be on Udemy or Coursera, taking classes, master class, the website, not the website, the show, master class. I'm all about being the best. You don't lose the competitive edge. That's not something that ever goes away. You just have to decide what you want to be the best at. Do I want to be the best dad? Absolutely. Well, what does that mean? I don't want to be my son's best friend, right? That's different than saying I want to be the best dad. Someday he's going to have to fly the coop. Do I want to be the best mentor? Absolutely. I want to make sure I give you the lessons and you learn. And when you F it up, I'm there to say, okay, let's see how we can make it better and
exactly.
progress from there. And sometimes making it better is it's a soft lesson, it's a hard lesson, right? It's sometimes you need a kick in the ass. You run a
Exactly.
little bit faster. You look at pro athletes and you say, why is that guy better? Somewhere in the back of it, in his background, there was a coach who just drove him into the dirt to say, you have a little bit more in you than the other guy. When you're in a ring and you get clocked and you see the end coming and you look up and you say, this is going to be the longest 30 seconds of my life, but I'm going to survive it.
You gotta push. Yeah.
You got it in you, but until you get there, you don't know what you have. Does that make sense? Until you push past that limit, you don't know what the limit is. So you need that someone. That's where the environment, that's where the Michelin star, that's where that little bit extra to say, I got a little something extra in you because somebody once pushed me past where I thought I was going to break, and I
Mm.
did. And now my limit's a little higher than yours. And if I keep pushing that, I'll keep growing.
Mm. Wow. I don't think we could have said it better, Chef. I love that perspective on it's really about having people, like you said, in your life that'll push you to that limit, that'll challenge you once you think you made it, that'll push you even further. And that's essential. It's super important. Chef Lam, Noreen, last 4 minutes. Give it your thoughts.
Yeah, Chef Sean, thank you very much. I just wanted to say for sharing your personal story. It was very personal and deep, and I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm thankful that you're here with us. And I just feel like I've learned a lot from you today. And a lot of it, I feel like, is centered around knowing yourself, pushing your limits, and allowing yourself to grow while staying in balance with your priorities. And the only way you can know your priorities is knowing yourself, right? So I think it goes back to that. And I just wanted to highlight that point that, Chef Lam and I talk about it a lot. You are your worst enemy. So it's really you versus you in this world. So you have to push yourself, push your limits, because, the options are limitless. What we can achieve is limitless in this world.
Peter Drucker, who is a management guru, passed a while ago, but said it, I think, the most important thing, because we dedicated our lives, or a lot part of our lives, to being what we call managers. It has never been proven that you can manage other people. You can manipulate them, you can do a lot of things with them, but it has never been proven that you can manage other people. The only thing you have the ability to manage is yourself.
Wow.
So in the end, you decide how far you're going to go.
There you go.
If you're going to hit that star or whatever it is. And I know we got the 4 minutes left. We're probably down to 2.5 right now. I hope it's been enriching for me to be able to do this. It's my first podcast. I hope you got something out of it. If you didn't, then we end up on the cutting floor. That's okay. But it was a short time for me to spend time with you, and I hope on some level, I can replay the fact that 30 something years ago, I met German. He was really impactful in my career. And 30 something years later, here I am. And if in some small measure I was able to give something back, blessings. If I wasn't, call on me again and I'll try better next time.
No, Chef, honestly, this meant the world. And like you said, it's full circle. You started with Chef Lam and here you are 30 years later. And, we're all connected, and really you are leaving an impact on, everybody. And not only the people that, are listening to the podcast, but, like you said, those that are in their circle as well. One small decision, one small change could impact a lot of people. So like we really appreciate you. Chef Lam, I'm gonna let you give your finishing thoughts.
Well, the finishing thought was the beauty of this podcast. It's about people like Chef Sean. They're willing in 30 minutes just speak from the heart, and about far as giving us insights of the journey that we're in, right? And to me, I would say this: everyone talks about life balance. Have you ever thought about time management? If you think about time management, you write down, these are the things that are important. Everything else doesn't matter. So that is something that, how you can have life balance in our industry.
No, that's a good
Before
point.
we leave, I'm going to make one correction, because I correct this with my staff all the time. I shouldn't say correction. You cannot manage time. An hour is an hour. The only thing you can manage is what you do with your time. And it's important to make that differentiation, because you're going to be faced with choices. You got to make those choices.
I love it, Chef. Yeah,
Yes.
everybody has the same hour, but it's how you use that hour that makes a difference. So
So-
thank you guys so much for being a part of this, Chef. We really appreciate you taking the time to do this. And not only, like I said, not only the people listening, but everybody that's impacted by them will be affected by this podcast. So thank you so much. And see you guys.
I look forward to seeing it. I hope I get a copy of it. I'd like